A great analysis there, and as we look forward to Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's sixth budget, albeit an interim one, Rajat, thank you so much. Let's also look at the expectations that have been building up. Some of the leaders of the industry and the corporate world expressing their views on what to expect from the sixth budget of Nirmala Sitharaman, of course, the 10th year of, or last one of the Modi government. Listen in.
Income tax slab should be expanded. 0 to 5 lakh no tax, 5 to 10 lakhs, 10%, 10 to 15, 20, above 15, 30 lakhs with surcharge. And that should be given as an option to people. Because the government has got a 5 slab or 6 slab which is complex, which many people are not doing.
I would like to see in the budget is some more measures to support MSMEs, such as mandatory registration in trades, as well as means to provide collateral-free credit, which is very important for their growth.
More conducive environment for the women entrepreneurs in the country. Of course, there are measures that is being taken for women entrepreneurs. Simpler steps to reach out to the women who really need this kind of encouragement to become entrepreneurs is what is expected.
Very important ingredient is a healthy India. And for a healthy India, we need a certain level of healthcare spend. And we also need to make sure that health insurance, which is the access to healthcare, penetration increases.
Incentivize private sector and tell them that if you put hospital in tier 3 town, 100 bedded, and you call them Ayushman hospital, then government should be able to provide them cheaper electricity, number 1, cheaper capital, and number 3, provision of single window clearances. If you can provide these 3 measures, private sector will be ready to invest.
ईवी सेक्टर में मेजॉरिटी बैटरी का कंट्रीब्यूशन आता है व्हीकल कॉस्ट में, जो 40% तक जाता है. उसके ऊपर 18% जीएसटी है. अगर वो 18% से 5% पे आ जाता है तो एक हमें कॉस्टिंग कम करने में एक राहत मिल जाएगी, क्योंकि हमारा जो आज ईवी है 5% पे है, बिकता है, बट ये 18% रहने की वजह से इन्वर्टेड टैक्स स्ट्रक्चर में चला जाता है, तो हमें एक जीएसटी का एक रिफंड का प्रोसीजर बढ़ जाता है.
Hello and welcome to a special segment on India's budget history. Let's take a look into some fascinating records that mark the evolution of India's financial planning. In a historic moment on April 7, 1860, the inaugural budget of India was presented by Scottish economist James Wilson, representing the East India Company. This budget marked the introduction of income tax, a significant revenue source for the government to this day. Fast forward to post-independence India, and on November 26, 1947, R.K. Shanmugham Chetty, the finance minister at the time, presented the nation's first budget. A linguistic shift took place in 1955. The Congress government decided to print budget documents in both Hindi and English, making them accessible to a wider audience. Delving into political legacies, Morarji Desai, the former Prime Minister, holds the record for presenting the most budget proposals in India's history. During his tenure as Finance Minister from 1962 to 1969, he presented a record of 10 budgets, setting a benchmark for subsequent leaders. The shortest budget speech in Indian history was presented by Hirobhai Mulji Patel in 1977 during the Morarji Desai government. His concise speech consisted of just 800 words. Over the years, the Union budget presentation has seen some changes in timing and language. Until 1999, the budget was presented at 5 p.m. on the last working day of February. Yashwant Sinha altered this tradition, moving the timing to 11 a.m. In terms of word count, the record for the lengthiest budget speech goes to Manmohan Singh, who in 1991 used a staggering 18,604 words during the annual financial presentation. Cut to 2019, Nirmala Sitharaman broke away from a century-old Bahi Khata tradition during her maiden budget presentation. Instead, she opted for a red silk bag adorned with the national emblem to carry the budget documents. This move has been widely praised as a significant step in shedding the colonial-era tradition. Interestingly, Nirmala Sitharaman became the second woman to present the budget, doing so in 2019 for the fiscal year 1970-71. These milestones showcase the rich and dynamic history of India's budgetary process. Within just around a decade of joining politics, Nirmala Sitharaman etched her name in the records by delivering the longest budget speech in Indian history. On February 1st in 2020, she spoke for an impressive 2 hours and 42 minutes during the presentation of the Union Budget for 2020-21. Lastly, amid the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, the budget for 2021-22 marked a historical digital transformation, becoming the first entirely digital budget presentation in independent India.
Viewers, here's a short glossary of words which will help you understand the budget and the economy better. Fiscal deficit. It's a difference between a government's total expenditures and the revenue it generates, excluding money from borrowings. Fiscal policy is the next one. Fiscal policy deals with revenue and expenditure policy of the government and how it affects a common man's life. If the government changes the income tax rate, then it impacts the disposable income in people's hands and influences their buying power. This subsequently affects businesses and the tax income of the government. Now, monetary policy is the flow of money in an economy which directly impacts its growth. The government monitors the liquidity in the economy to ensure optimum growth via the Reserve Bank of India. The next term, finance bill. A finance bill pertains to the country's finances and could include changes in taxes, revenues, government borrowings. Now, when the union budget is announced, several changes are proposed to the government's revenue and expenditure. Immediately after the presentation of the union budget, all financial changes recommended are presented before both the houses of the parliament in the form of a finance bill. The next one is vote on account. Now, after the announcement of the union budget, the government starts the parliamentary approval process. Under this, there is a special provision called vote on account, where the government obtains permission from the parliament for a sufficient sum to carry on daily functions until the required legislation is passed. Now we move on to reappropriations. Reappropriation refers to the reallocation or the transfer of funds within a budget. This could occur when the funds originally allocated for one purpose are reassigned for another. Next, we come to outcome budget. Outcome budget is a way to monitor the allocated funds within a new budget. Since 2006 to 2007, it has been made mandatory for every ministry to present a preliminary outcome budget to the Ministry of Finance for compiling them together. The next word is guillotine. The Parliament has limited time for discussing the expenditure demands of each ministry. Now, if there is any pressing political matter, other things can be put on hold, and the Speaker of the House can apply the guillotine and move a proposal against a specific allocation for a government department. Let's move on to cut motions. A cut motion is a special power vested in members of the Lok Sabha to oppose a demand being discussed for specific allocation by the government in the finance bill as part of the demand for grants. If the motion is adopted, it amounts to a no confidence vote, and if the government fails to jot up the numbers in the lower house, it is obliged to resign according to the norms of the house. And treasury bills. When the central government approaches the financial market to raise money, it does so by issuing two types of debt instruments: treasury bills and government bonds. Treasury bills are issued whenever the government needs money for a short period. These treasury bills are issued only by central government. They have a maximum maturity period of 364 days. And a government bond is a debt instrument issued by the central and state governments of India. Issuance of such bonds occur when the issuing body, whether it is the central government or any state government, faces a liquidity crisis and requires funds for the purpose of infrastructure development.
With the interim budget just around the corner, in this special segment, we explain the lock-in procedure.
followed during the interim budget process. The sole purpose of this procedure is to keep financial facts private. Now, this distinctive feature is a specific technique designed to safeguard the confidentiality of the budget information. Now, during this period, dedicated personnel are confined to the budget press in the North Block to ensure that the budget remains anonymous until the Union Finance Minister publicly presents the budget to the Parliament. The lock-in period procedure was introduced after a piece of the budgetary information was leaked prematurely back in 1950. The controversy escalated to the extent that the then Finance Minister, John Mathai, had to resign due to a breach of confidentiality.